In the last 2 years alone, I've generated over $4 million in high ticket sales using this simple framework, what we call identity shifting and identity framing. And trust me when I say this, doing this simple identity shifting frame in your sales conversations, it's going to make your commission checks feel like you're doing something illegal. As soon as I implemented this one trick into my sales conversations and framework, last month alone, it allowed me to make 11.4K in 1 week. And the week after, in a 7-day period, I made another $9.3 thousand in one single week, just from this one trick. So if you can't stick around and watch the rest of this 13-minute or so video, I don't see how you're ever going to make a lot of money with commissions and sales. Okay, so in today's advanced closing, we're going to be going through identity shifting and identity framing, okay? Now, in broad nature, all identity framing is you're bringing someone from who they are now, so the 1.0 version, to being the 2.0 version, so they can have enough internal conviction and confidence to make a change and effectively give you cash and sign up to the program or whatever you sell. And some people can put themselves in that 2.0 version before we even speak to them. And they're the sort of prospects we might call laydowns, where they sell themselves before we talk to them. And a lot of people need encouraging, and they need a new perspective, because everyone's perspective on reality is a lot different. Like my perspective would be different to yours, your perspective would be different to your parents. And that's just all it is, but we need to have someone having a high level of identity in order to give us 10 grand, 5 grand, whatever the service costs that we sell, okay? So with identity framing and identity shifting, we're going to be breaking down a few different methodologies and a few different sort of frameworks on how this is broken down, because of course it's all done in context, and identity shifting and framing is done differently in different contexts, okay? But in retrospect, it's the same. So first things first, we need to help them see who they need to be and who they need to become in order to make a change. Because a lot of prospects we speak to, a lot of people, they have a level of thinking of the version of who they are now, and that's why they are where they are. Right? Let me put it this way. The reason everybody in life is where they are now is because of their perspective and their identity. For example, if you have the identity of someone who isn't fit, you're going to be overweight. If you have the identity of someone who makes money, you're going to chase their behaviors, and you're going to think like a person who makes money. And that should make sense by now. If you've been through the rest of the videos, it's about chasing the behavior, not the output, okay? So one simple example, and we'll start it off with this example because it's very simple, and you guys should understand it at surface level value. So it's as simple as saying this to a prospect. So say if we sell a business opportunity, like how to make money online, we say to the prospect, so Mr. Prospect, what do you think separates someone who is successful to someone who isn't successful? Now, their responses is typically going to be, yep, the successful person takes action. The successful person isn't afraid to fail, which is very, very true. And the thing is, people already know this, but they don't think and act like this. So our follow-up question to the prospect saying they take action, or the person who's successful isn't afraid to fail, our follow-up question right here is, so what do you need to do? Or who do you need to become in order to be successful and achieve what you're wanting to achieve? Or who do you need to be to achieve, insert what they say, insert the desire, okay? Look, a good way I like to do identity shifting and framing is dreamer and recognition. So let me explain. Let's say, for example, you're talking to a person who has maybe been looking at starting an online business for the past 5 years. Now, keep in mind, everything's root cause. You guys should understand this by now. Root cause is everything, okay? So let's say someone's been doing something, looking around for 5 years, and they haven't even taken action. What does that tell us right there about their behavior? They're a dreamer, okay? Now, we don't call them a dreamer. We don't say to their face on Zoom, yeah, you're a dreamer, mate. You're not going to make it. You're not going to get a sale. So a good frame I like to do with this is, yeah, look, I mean, like Mr. Prospect, like, Look, I talk to, two types of people who come to us looking for help. You've got person A, and this person right here, they're like a bit of a dreamer. Those sort of people who sit around for like years on end, don't take action, they procrastinate, they just dream about the visions and goals they have. We also speak to like another person, which is person B. And person B, they're a go-getter, they're an action taker, and they just get after what they want. And at scale, the most successful clients we see and the most successful people we see in the world are the people who take action, right? So we're shifting them from thinking, okay, shit, I am a dreamer. I need to be on this new level of identity, an action taker, person B, in order to achieve what I want to achieve. Because the prospect, keep in mind, they're viewing you as the authority. They're the one with the problem. They have the problem. They booked in the call to talk to us. So they view you as an authority. So when you frame it in this way, where it's like, yeah, we have dreamers, we have action takers, dreamers don't succeed, they're going to start aligning their identity with the action taker. Okay? Now, we'll cross that out and we'll focus on the recognition frame. Now, this is another frame I really, really like to use. I use this one a lot. So say, for example, you have a 9-to-5 worker. Let's just use the business opportunity example again. Let's say they book in a call. It's as simple as this. At any point in the conversation, use your intuition as well, like when it's congruent to say it. You don't want to awkwardly say things. So when it makes sense, you can say something like this. Yeah, Mr. Prospect, I don't want to, give you recognition for actually reaching out to us in the first place because, look, to be honest, man, like a lot of people just try to do things themselves, or there's just a lot of people who procrastinate and don't take action. So I don't want to recognize you for actually reaching out to get outside help and taking action. So what are we doing here? Once again, like the dreamer frame, with the recognition frame, we're just shifting their identity from the 1.0 version to the 2.0 version of who they need to be in order to make a change. Like the whole ideation with identity framing and identity shifting is to have the prospect come to a new identity. They align themselves as a 1.0 version to the 2.0 version of who they need to be in order to be successful, okay? So even if you're selling a fitness offer where you can help people lose weight or gain muscle, it's as simple as this. What do you think separates someone who actually puts in the work and loses weight opposed to someone who just sits in a situation and gains even more weight? Oh, well, they actually commit. They take action. They show up every day for their goals. So even if you're selling fitness, this applies for every single industry. It applies for every single offer you could sell. Even with the dreamer frame and the recognition frame, yeah, we talk to a lot of people who dream about losing weight, yada, 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 right? So you see how this applies to every industry. It's not just business opportunity. Every industry you sell, this all applies to it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and flip the board here, okay? And we're now going to go a level and even a layer deeper into identity framing and identity shifting, okay? So, look, it really all stems from the root cause. I say this like a broken record, I know, but it really is the root cause. And because we now understand that from going through the rest of these training videos, it's going to make explaining this a lot easier, okay? So put it this way. I'll come over here. So put it this way, right? So this is the prospect that you speak with, okay? Right? Whether they are wanting to make money online, this obviously stems from not having enough money and they can't do the things they want to do in life. That's the only reason people really want to make businesses. It's just the truth, right? So they're obviously broke or they don't have a ton of money. So let's just say this is Mr. $1,000 in bank. Keep in mind there's nothing wrong with having $1,000 in the bank. I've been there. I'm not trying to discriminate anyone who doesn't have a lot of money. I'm just using this as an example, okay? Or let's just say, for example, this is even the overweight prospect who you're selling a fitness service to, okay? Either or. It's either the prospect who wants to be successful and doesn't have a lot of money and makes a lot of money right now, doesn't make a lot of money right now, or you're talking to the overweight, mid-40s guy, okay? So this is them right here, okay? So in order for us to really help them see the new identity on who they could be, because for example, take this same prospect and put them over here to the 2.0 version. So to make this clearer, this prospect you speak to is the 1.0 version right here. This is who they are now, and they don't really want to be that person anymore. That's why they're talking to us, okay? Now, the person they could be is over here. So the 2.0 version is up here, okay? This is the version of them who is ripped as hell, has maybe a six-pack, okay? Or this is the version of them who, you know, makes 20K a month, right? So as you can see, it's visually on the board now. This is the version of them who they are now, and this is who they need to be. But in order for us to help this prospect make a change, we need to take them through the identity shifting process and frame them into a new way of thinking in who they need to be to make a decision to give us cash. Obviously to commit to themselves and change their life too, just like I showed you on the other side of the board. So in order for us to do this, it obviously comes back to this chart here. And I relate everything to this chart because it's just the truth. It's the root cause. It's the fundamentals of like why people do things. So like I said before, experience leads to what? To belief. Belief leads to how they make decisions and take action. You should know this one now, okay? But in order for us to help the prospect see this person, we need to ask our questions. And that comes from doing like the identity framing, like recognition frame. What do you feel like separates someone from being XYZ? So what we're doing here, we're helping them view this person, okay? So for example, we take them through the dreamer frame, or for example, we take them through this frame here. Mr. Prospect, what do you think separates someone who is successful to someone who isn't successful? Their response is they take action, they're not afraid to fail. So what they're starting to, in their mind and visually see in their mind, is they're starting to see the 2.0 version. And this is how it works. This is psychological questions 101. So as you're going through those frames, and if you do multiple of those frames during one conversation, man, they are going to see this person night and day. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit more complex. So once they start to see the version of who they are now, when we start to ask the questions where we probe and clarify and say, like, what would that do for you? And just like, what do you think separates, you know, that version of you to who you are now? Like, what do you feel like is holding you back from being that version? They really start to put themselves in the shoes of this person. And obviously this comes from going through the correct framework, like solution awareness, and saying like, what would this do for you? How do you see life being different? They really start to put themselves in the shoes of the 2.0 version who is obviously in shape or has money or relative to the industry you're selling. And what you start to do from asking these questions is you start to shine a light. You start to shine a light on who they are now. So from doing this process and shining the light back onto who they are right now, they're going to start to see the identity that they currently carry, okay? And they're going to see who they can be, and they're going to feel disgusted and ashamed if you do this correctly. And this is what's going to drive the most amount of tension and urgency into anyone's situation possible. And this is what's going to result in them giving you the most amount of cash up front possible as well. So that's all for identity shifting and framing. Of course, there are levels deeper to this, right? And it's going to come naturally once you start to get the fundamentals, just like this. But hopefully that helps, okay?